Welcome to the Running on Grass podcast. I'm your co-host, Logan Pribino, here with Eamon O'Toole. How are things in Wyoming, Eamon?
Hot and dry, Logan. Hot and dry. We have had many days, 90s to 100, and luckily it hasn't been real windy. We had a windy spring, but it's been not a terrible windy summer down here in the Little Snake River Valley, but very dry. We haven't had a rain since the one we talked about a couple weeks ago. I had 0.06, which was pretty exciting at the time, but that kind of came in and left, and that was it. So how about you?
Same. We haven't had a rain since before the 4th of July. It's supposed to rain Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday this week. And as my dad said last night, I'll believe it when I see it. We've watched so many of those things just die light of wine glass, but hopefully tomorrow night we get some. But yeah, like we said in the last episode, I'm going to have the adjuster out this week and we'll be grazing some dryland corn and getting desperate. Hopeless in Seattle, hopeless in Nebraska.
Yeah, this thing we're the same. There's rain in the forecast. We've got a big one day after tomorrow, possibly coming in. I'm selling my calves up in Cody, Wyoming, and I'm actually going to go up there the day before because of the rain that I'm going to try and avoid those storms. So yeah, it's tough. But I hope it comes in here and gets so busy raining that we just have to stop and let everybody sit around the cookhouse and drink coffee for a week. I'd make more money with guys sitting around the cookhouse drinking coffee, raining all week than I could do anything else.
Yeah, same. It's fair week here too, so hopefully it just sets in and rains. We did sell the top end of our steers last week. It overall shipped 400 and some. Then they weighed good. The heavy end was 990, average like 925, so that was positive.
Yeah, this thing seems to be turning around a little bit. We're holding in on the feeders. It's been I think it was 344 closed yesterday.
Yep. So yeah, it's up today, I see.
Yeah, it's coming up a little bit. So those are all good things. And I don't know, hopefully the world's kind of starting just to settle into this new norm of where the Strait of Hormuz is open, it's closed. It's open, it's closed.
Is it open or closed right now? I've lost track. Are we at war or at peace?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. It's kind of like when we went into the Middle East at the beginning, it was crazy. And then everybody was like, well, this is just the new normal now. So hopefully the markets are just settling in and getting used to it.
Yeah. The equities and the cattle market just at the beginning of that deal were just trading negative. It was not good news.
Right. Yeah. Well, hopefully we can all get on some level ground here and we can all get back to doing our business and be in a normal place.
Agreed. What do you want to hit on today? What are we going to get into?
I'll just kind of give you an update. As everybody knows, I'm running a bunch of Logan's heifers for the summer, and we're breeding them. They're doing really good, and we grazed it once, and now we're on the second cutting, basically, of alfalfa, and I've got another day or two on that, and then we're going to put them on some ground that's a little more deserty, but hopefully that buys us some time, and we're going to spread them around pretty good, trying to get on all the water throughout that country. So that should be exciting, and it's going to kind of get us to where we want to be, and hopefully it'll buy us a few weeks.
Nice.
So yeah, and then my own heifers, we're kind of in the same boat. We're going to have them here for a little bit longer on the forest, and then we're going to move them to another place that's going to buy us a little bit of time as well here at Ladder, so that we can just hold them off as long as possible, keeping them from putting them in a feedlot or anything, because all of a sudden your costs get pretty high when you go into a feed yard.
Yeah, I was running the numbers on that deal, and I think for a yearling right now, it's over $2 to put them on feed for a 8 or 9 weight.
Yeah, and you can be half of that on range. So I think that's the goal, is to keep the cost low. We've said it before, in good times, be extra cautious of your spending and good things will happen.
Yeah. So what else you want to hit on today?
We'll talk about some off-ranch investing, and then we'll go from there. Last time we didn't get into the different breeds of African cattle, and I'd love for you to kind of tell us what you've been learning in the genetic world of African cattle and what you think that could do for your herd.
Perfect. Well, Eastco, they've got us for another 2 episodes. We appreciate their partnership. So Eastco is a rancher-owned, rancher-focused insurance agency specializing in PRF, LRP, annual forage. Eastco doesn't do a lot of marketing, but because of its staff listens to Running on Grass, has decided to be a sponsor. Just as the topics covered are relevant and interesting to real boots-on-the-ground decision makers, the products at Eastco offers tangible benefit to ranching operations across the U.S. Visit eastcoastgroup.com or email info@eastcoastgroup.com to learn more. Or give us a shout. We'll get you into contact with JW.
Yeah, thanks, JW and Jen. You guys have been great. And right now, hope you got your LRP in PRF in months ago, and hopefully it's paying off for you now because we haven't had enough rain anywhere that you shouldn't be being able to take advantage of products.
Yeah, 100%.
So Logan, let's get into it.
Off ranch investing.
Yeah, what are you doing, or what are some of the ideas that you have?
That's a good question. It's very tough to balance. I do like to invest in equities and index funds. And when I can take money outside of the business and put it into index funds, I really like it. For example, we made money in 2020 and did a disbursement, and I put it into a Vanguard high dividend index fund. And we made money in 2020. I redid my backyard, put it in a pool, kind of spent some money on that deal and invested into the Vanguard high dividend fund. And like, for example, the money that I've made from that will fund my entire Africa trip, just the gains on that. And the timing was impeccable, right? But I do love to have just a little bit outside of cattle and ranching.
Well, you're on another level than I am. I'm not that far yet, but bogleheads through and through. I talked to my guy and we talked about some Vanguard stuff, and I think we're playing around with Vanguard now, and that one's just been solid through and through. If anybody gets a chance, there's a podcast on Vanguard, and it took a while for it to come together and really start to take to its own. But now that it's 40, 50 years in now, it's cranking and it's a running wheel and it works.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's so difficult to do, to wrestle that money away from the operation and to set it aside. 9 years out of 10, it's just almost impossible. We do offer a simple IRA for ourselves and employees, and that helps as well.
I'm more in a place right now where we're trying to get a few things paid off, paid down. And then our plan is hopefully these cattle markets stay up and things continue on this path that we're all enjoying. And then to be able to take those profits, and rather than putting them back into buildings or putting them back into, whatever, that it's easy to spend money on a ranch by the tens of thousands daily if you want to, and take that money. And we have a guy that we work with on our ranch that's our finance guy. And so we don't make any really big decisions without talking to him first, because he really has been with us since I was in high school. My parents started working with him.
Is this Bob or someone else?
Yep, this is Bob.
Okay.
And in working with Bob, he knows these people that have opportunities, or maybe they have a great business, but they need some more capital to be able to grow or whatever that thing is. And I don't know if that's a car wash or if they have a restaurant. I don't know what it is, but my plan is, when we are in that place, Bob will point us in the right direction and say, all right, I've got a guy here. This is what you'd be investing in. Are you comfortable with this? And then let's pretend it's yes. Then we just start making dividends off of that investment annually.
Yeah, and it's nice to be diversified. Diversified portfolio is the winner for very clear reasons. And ranching and farming is just notorious for lack of diversifying.
Yeah, and I'm not handy in the way that, if I own an apartment complex, I can go over there and fix the water heater and do that kind of stuff. And not only do I not have interest in that, I also don't have time to do that in my day. I can't take a half a day to go run over and fix a water heater because of the apartment complex I thought was a good buy. There are people, and that's their skills and they're great at it. That's not me.
Yeah, we rent out a couple houses and it's a pain is what it is. This isn't a new apartment. It's old farmhouses. Man, it's just a chore.
My grandfather built an apartment complex. It still stands today in Baggs, Wyoming. And it was for one of his family members to run. And that family member didn't want to run it. So my mom ended up getting it, and she ran it for quite a while. And she said, man, the thing always made money. But she said, the day after I sold it, the water heater for the whole building went out. She said, I've never been so happy to be out of something.
Yeah. And it's just, somebody said, for ranching is just such a all-encompassing occupation that it's just hard to have a sideline like running an apartment complex.
There are people, and I think if you can do that and you're good at it and your ranch doesn't need you there all day long doing this, that, and the other, then that's great. But at that point, you're saying, do I manage apartments or am I a rancher?
100%.
Because you're spending more time fixing the apartments or whatever it is than you are ranching.
I love about the equities market is it's liquid, trades every day, just goes up every day, it feels like, as well. And just, it's on easy mode and, you can sell whenever you want. And that's what I really love about the US equities. It works while I'm not.
ETFs have been great and working well for people for a long time, including Vanguard. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for ranchers to do things that don't take a lot of time. There are places to put your money that, like you did with Vanguard, or finding somebody that has opportunities for you, and they just need help growing their business, and you're just a funder for it, and you get paid a percentage. I think things like that are better options for ranchers than to be running into town every couple of days to fix whatever somebody broke in their apartment.
Yeah, 100%. Since I told you about the trade that worked really well, I have to tell you about my other ones. So I invest in ETFs for the most part, focused on low expense categories, but also in 2021, when we made the disbursement, I bought silver, thinking that there was a play there. And about 9 months ago or so, it got a little high. It was up like 5% or something like that. And I sold it. I was like, all right, I'm finally getting out of this. It's been 5 years. It's up a little bit. I'm just going to liquidate. And so I sold that and I bought Bitcoin. Right. And this was right before the run up in silver. So I missed it by a mile. That is all to say. And then invested in an asset class that has gone down. I have to do a little bit of spec trading, but for the most part, I am in the ETF index funds.
Yeah, I bought some Bitcoin, and I was, had been making money. It was on that slow climb, and I bought it in the 70s or something. And then it got up to the 120s or something.
Yep.
And then
126.
I didn't know enough about it to get out of it. Like, I had invested in it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. It's probably just going to keep climbing the way it's been climbing. And then the thing totally tanked. And then I sold it at, I don't know, I think I lost a couple $1,000s. It wasn't like a whole sting in the eye, but it certainly didn't make me look very smart. So anyways, I've gotten out of Bitcoin, and I have stayed out of Bitcoin, even though you watch these bottoms and you're like, man, a little tempting to get back into it. Another opportunity. So I'm going to give you an example of a good idea that went wrong. And I think that this is everything you do in life is all about who your partners are and how, trust and working together and honesty and all those things that we all try and do. And so I'm going to tell you about a guy that called me up, and there was an opportunity to invest in some livestock. And he called me and said, "Hey, can this business make money?" And I said, if he does it the way that because we were trying to help the guy, he had, really asked us to help him hold his hand to get through this business. And so we were trying to help the guy, and the funder called us and said, "Hey, I've put in quite a bit of money into this. Is there an opportunity here?" And I said, if he does all the things right, then he can absolutely make money. But this is a business that, with this kind of livestock, you can lose your rear really fast if you don't know what you're doing and you're not willing to take advice. And this guy didn't know what he was doing, and he didn't listen to anything we told him to do. In fact, he did the opposite of everything we told him to do. And we called him actually, and we said, "Hey, this guy isn't doing the things that we've told him to do. I think you should go check on this business you've invested in." And he never came down. He never checked it out. And then last thing I hear is the guy's pretty upset how much money he's lost, and he's not getting any returns. And we just told him, we said, we called you, we told you to come down and take a look at this. And so those things happen too. And he trusted the guy, and he thought he'd be a good partner, and he was not.
Yeah.
There are opportunities. I think if you wanted to invest, if somebody would have given you, $2 million last year and said, "Logan, go buy all the heifers you can buy with this business," you would have returned them so much money.
Yeah. Someone did that, and his name is JB, and he works for Henderson State Bank.
Yeah.
And it was more than two.
So, but I mean, as a private opportunity there, if your neighbor who you know, like, and trust and grew up next to would have said, "Hey, Logan, I've got a bunch of money on hand, and I think this heifer thing looks like a great opportunity. Would you be willing? I'll help fund it, and you run the cattle for me." That would have been a great opportunity.
Yeah, it would have. Yeah, 100%. So yeah, and getting back to that, so there's off-farm investments, and I really like to take money out and invest in indexes, just because it's like, it seems different when it's not part of the ranch, if that makes any sense to anyone. It feels more mine. I did hear, this is a ranch for profit term, was one of the definitions of profit in ranching is money that you make from ranching that you take out of the ranch and invest in US equities. Like we've made money and you put it right back into the ranch. And it is a profit technically, but it doesn't quite feel the same when you put it right back into the ranch. And we've done that. We've bought ground and I do that too, but it feels good to just take it out. And this is very interesting that I disagree with Alan Nation in this regard. Alan Nation did not recommend investing in U.S. equities. He just talked about how you have a lack of a knowledge edge, and he has a strong preference for assets the operator understands and controls. And so this is one of the very, very unique areas where Alan Nation and I completely disagree. And I think it's a foundation of when he was investing in the Stockman grass farmer and how quickly he was able to grow it and the equity markets at the time. So he was a child of the 70s and 80s, and it was just a different animal back then. But he did not recommend taking money and investing it in the stock market, and Logan Pribano does.
There's an older gentleman that what I think we've all heard of named Warren Buffett who strongly believed in investing in America, and he did pretty well at it. So,
yeah, he did. And did you see that they're getting back into the equity market?
Yeah.
I thought that I was surprised. I was surprised at that.
I was surprised at how much money they had to spend.
Yeah, they had a huge cash war chest.
It was like 600 billion or something. It was an amazing amount of money.
Yeah, and Warren is not calling the shots anymore, so it's his replacement.
Yeah. Yep. I can't remember that guy's name, but he's apparently was under tutelage for a long time. And I'm guessing that he didn't make that move and spend that kind of cash without a phone call to Warren Buffett.
Sure. But I follow the equities pretty closely. When I listen to a podcast, it's typically a podcast about investing or that. I'm guilty of that. And it seems pretty toppy, with the AI trade and NVIDIA and, all of these stocks. I was very surprised to learn that they were just now investing into the equities. And I did not read about what in particular they were investing in.
Yeah, I would like to spend more time visiting with my guy who I use. He's with Raymond James. And every time I visit with him, we come up with great ideas of things to invest in. And we have pulled the trigger on a few things. And it's generally worked out well when you sit there and talk it out with the guy and say, all right, what are the good things that can happen here? And what are the downsides? And, it's almost like just writing it all down, pros and cons. And if you come up with more pros, let's give it a whirl. And so far, those kind of things that I've spent more time sitting down and talking about than, well, I saw it on Facebook or I read about this. Let's throw a little money at that. Those haven't worked out as well as things that you really sit, just like your business or anything else. If you sit and take time and run the numbers, usually those work.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about saving for retirement as a ranch owner?
I think that I'm behind the eight ball.
Yeah.
I think that it is paramount to succession planning and trying to figure out how to build my retirement war chest, as it were, to give my kids more opportunities by being gone from the ranch, leaving here, giving this ranch to them, getting out of their way, getting out of my own way. Then I can go do some of the things that I'd like to go take a cruise down the Nile or whatever those things look like in the future. Well, I can go do that. Well, they're shipping calves if I want to. And I think that when you get to that point, there's a real level of freedom and you've done things for your operation that are very valuable. So like I said, I'm behind the eight ball, but really trying to put as much money into that as I can right now in my 40s so that when my kids are here, probably in the next, hopefully here, the next 10 to 15 years, then they can come in here and not be like, boy, mom and dad are still pulling from the business and they're not really contributing anything.
Yeah, I'm the same. Brianna and I save between a third and a quarter of our income for retirement savings into Roth IRAs, simple IRAs. And when Brianna was working outside the business for Allo, she was aggressively maxing out her 401k and early on, like in your 20s. And it's one of those things where we were aggressive in our 20s and 30s in doing that, even though we were not high income at all. So that those percentages are,
you're putting in $200 instead of
exactly. And
$1,000.
We don't pay ourselves that much by salary, but same as you. It's like we just want outside ranch money for Logan and Brianna Pribano later in life and have used that as a tool to achieve that for the benefit of the future operators.
Yeah. And just growing up here on this ranch, seeing the generations before me. My grandfather had some other opportunities that he took advantage of with some gas wells he had. And it wasn't like Texas oil money by any means. He wasn't flying around in a private jet, but it was enough money that he could live without having to pull money from the business. And he was even able to pass that on to his grandchildren. And it's a little bit of money, but it's not like anybody's out and blowing a whole bunch of money on European vacations and things every month.
Sure.
So he was able to do that. The generation before him, I don't know. My parents, they just lived through the ranch basically, and they didn't look at it like we need to save for retirement someday because I don't think they ever planned on retiring. But my mom, she's on the ranch as much as she wants to be. We always joke she's as retired as she wants to be. Last year, she was able to go on a European vacation and right when we were shipping our calves. So to me, that's success is you can go do what you want and you're still wanted at home. So she's done a great job at that and was able to go to Spain and Morocco for like 3 weeks in November. And I think the day she left, we were loading trucks.
Nice.
So to me, they did a perfect job of succession and she's able to do that stuff. But I want to be on another level, more comfortable where the ranch isn't supplementing me at all in those later years in life.
That's also the goal for me. But it's hard, again, just going back into it, it's hard in the business that you and I run. I'll be frank, we do not make money every year. We make money about 80% of the time.
That's better than most ranches.
Yeah, 75 to 80%. And I pay fair market rent to my parents for everything, whether we make money or not. So I'm charged everything at fair market rent. I don't get land, labor, or anything at a discount, which makes ranching a lot of fun when you pay everything retail. So it is hard to pull that money out. It's very difficult. And especially if you're expanding your operation, like the Ladder Ranch and Wine Glass have both done expansions in our time back at the ranch. It's just really hard to pull that money away. And I get it. Like the guys that aren't able to do that, I understand their perspective because it's hard to grow the business and pull money outside of it to invest.
We talked about it before where we are living off of decisions that were made 4 or 5 generations ago. Our great great grandparents bought land, and that's the same land you and I are operating on today. And where you're paying fair market rent to someone, we run our operation more like changing CEOs, and that CEO has ownership. But my sister and I did not buy this ranch from my parents. We are not renting this ranch from my parents. We just changed the management structure. And so my sister and I are now owners as much as my mom and dad were, but we just changed who's managing the ranch.
Yeah, and that's one way to do it and a great way to do it. Our structure is just a little different where we have the operating company different from the land and cattle company.
My sister and I have made this more into a business than the previous generations had it set up. And I think our kids being first generation to run this as first cousins, then they're going to have to get on another level and they're going to have a real CEO role, a real COO role, CF role. Those things are going to have to get more deeply integrated into our business than the way my sister and I run it is more of a co-CEO. And then I do more of a COO role while she does more of a CF role. I think our kids are going to have to really define those to keep this thing running correctly. But when you take a ranch and every generation has to buy it from the previous generation, that's a loser every time.
That is tough to do.
You can't keep purchasing the same land over and over again. The value gets too high too fast.
Mm-hmm. And it's so divorced from the cash flow. The valuations that exist today are just not at all related to the cash flow that you can generate from it.
Every place that I know that's done that is either shrunk their size so much because they had to keep purchasing. So that's not even a viable ranch in terms of they're not only ranching, they also have an oil business or they have some other thing on the side that they're doing and they want to ranch full time, but they can't because they've had to keep selling land off to pay off the previous generation.
And there are a lot of people that's their reality and that's just how it has to work for them. And it's not an uncommon structure at all.
And I think what's led to that is that generation thought, I'm going to get my money when I check out of this ranch and I pass this ranch on. That's when I get my returns rather than taking a quarter or a third of your paycheck for your life. they're just saying, nope, it's all going to come at once at the end. And that's when that happens. So I think, it's just different ways of looking at it. But I think that the way that like you and Brianna are doing, where knowing Logan, he's very structured and he said, all right, I made $1,000 in my check this month. I'm going to take $300 of that. And that's going towards retirement. Logan is structured enough that he will do that, where there's a lot of people that aren't that structured.
And also this tax planning comes into play. If you are someone in their 20s, 30 or 40s, and you're not maxing out your Roth IRA, you're being irresponsible. At a minimum, you need to do that because that will be income that you can take in the future that is untaxed. So, I mean, that's one of the big drivers. And I just can't stress that enough. If you are not maxing out your Roth IRA, you're being financially irresponsible. You heard it here first.
I think everyone would agree with that, but let's take it back a step, because most guys that are on horseback today that are out there punching cows, listening to the podcast on their earbuds, they're thinking, what the hell's a Roth IRA?
Yeah.
And I know that's crazy because you and I kind of find this stuff interesting and that's what we're looking at. But I promise you that most cowboys out in the country moving cows right now or listening to this in the pickup, heading over to go check a water, are thinking, I don't even have a Roth IRA, or I have it through my company, but how do I max it out? I'm working for this corporate place. How do I do that, Logan?
Here's how you do it. So we do a simple IRA as for our employees and ourselves. And so we invest as part of that. We do a 3% match. Aside from that, though, you need to have a Roth IRA and you need to go to charlesschwab.com, start an account, start a Roth IRA, and you're going to take $500 a month is pretty close to the max. Like $600, I think is the max. And whenever your paycheck hits, you're just going to automatically transfer $600 a month to your Roth IRA. And you'll start an automatic investing plan and it'll sweep that money weekly into an index fund. And if you do that today, if you do that right now and you're in your 20s or 30s, it will be worth at least $1 million, if not millions in the future. And you need to do yourself a favor and doing that right now, because the government is going to continue to print money and eat away your wage with inflation. And this is the number one tool you can use to combat that. So start a Roth IRA today. charlesschwab.com. They make investing so difficult that you end up just staying in the market. And so it is the brokerage of choice.
Yeah, and that's genius stuff. Anybody listening to this, rewind it a little bit, go back and listen to what Logan just said, because he's absolutely correct. And I did that with my main guy that works here. I got him with my investment guy. And I said, you were in your early 20s. If you take your money and you start putting it and investing it today, then I said, when you're 60, I could pay you the same as I pay today. And he'll, I'm sure, get raises, but I could just keep paying him what he makes today. And I told him, take X amount of dollars, put it in every month. Do not ever miss a month. And I said, you can retire here at 60 as a millionaire. You don't have to be a broke cowboy that worked at a ranch your whole life and then hope there's somewhere for you later in life. You can be a millionaire when you're 60, just working here, doing day to day.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons we started that simple IRA with that 3% match, is just get my employees so they have something to contribute to. And it's one of those things where it's kind of a pain in the butt at first, but after a decade, you look back and you're like, God, thank God. And also men, when you hit a certain age in the 40s, you're going to be like, wow, I'm old. Retirement is near, and you're going to want to have a little nest egg when you hit a certain age. So the sooner you start, the better off you are.
Yeah. Well, let's switch gears and get back to some beef. Tell us about African cattle.
Well, let's hit on, I had a conversation with Scott Johnson. They hired a new COO. And one of the things I realized, and one of the really cool things about this podcast, I have a bunch of people reach out to me, call me. They kind of know what you and I are thinking, and we're in their ear. And it's been really fun. I get at least a phone call or a text a day. And it's just fun to engage with those people. And Scott Johnson called me last week. I also talked to Jen Livesley last week as well, and love the Johnson family, by the way, a huge fan. Like, all of them are wonderful, awesome people. I don't know how they do it. So credit to you
Jen
guys.
is a Johnson, just to clarify. She's part of that operation. But yeah, I talked to her last week and she helped me talk through some carbon credit stuff. And they're just a wealth of knowledge. They know a lot of things, a lot about a lot of.
Yeah,
things.
and they just hired a COO, Dale Richardson, who worked for Maddox before Robert. And they've grown quite a bit, and they chose to just fill that COO role with a high caliber person like Dale. So that'll be fun to watch from the sidelines.
I don't know if you know this, but there's a ranch that was owned by the Stranahan family in Clark, Colorado, and owned Stranahan whiskey, and they made money in some other things. And then they sold the main headquarters, which was a really cool place. And a guy that made a bunch of money with some internet business bought it. And I think it's not, but it's like TurboTax, something like that. Anyways, this guy bought it, and the manager there at that place was a guy named Michael Moon. And that guy got hired by the Johnsons, and I think he's the manager of the Chico Basin.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And he had worked there previously in his career. So
Nice.
they really took a guy who already knew the ranch and knew about it and how it worked. And they were able to hire a talented individual and bring him back. So the Johnsons are ahead of a lot of people, and they know what they're doing. They're paying attention.
And what I wanted to hit on was in these private conversations, you learn so much. What we talk about on this podcast, what gets printed in the articles, it's always like the glossy version, like it's the public facing situation, you know what I mean? And in those private conversations, you're able to really talk about some things. I had a conversation with Lee Leachman a couple months ago when I was up at Sheila Angus, and we were talking about some things, and it just reminded me what's printed in the books is not what actually is. And I can't get into what we talked about because it's not the official version, but real history is exclusively held in those private conversations. And it's one of those reasons that you got to go to that stuff like WRM. And Eamon and I are going to that halter event here in a couple weeks. And you got to be in those in-person situations to really rub elbows with people and hear what's really going on.
That's where the real learning happens, is at the in-person meetings. And I don't know if I told you this, we're going to, all the heifers that we bought, this huge project, my guy that lives here on the ranch, Chandler, we've talked about him a lot. He's like Braden and your guys. You can just trust him implicitly. He's going to do a better job than I probably would do because he is more detail oriented than I am. I like the big picture, and Chandler's going to make sure every detail of every heifer gets done right. And so the day that you and I go up to this meeting, Chandler is going to be preg checking all those heifers that day.
Yeah.
And that's the value of having a great employee is you and I can go learn more about the CEO role type stuff that we carry in our operations, where you have these great employees that can take care of the business. And that's what they enjoy doing.
I was having this conversation with my dad a week ago or two. There's guys like Homer Buell, who I don't know if he's on the ranch half the time. I mean, he's doing so much on different boards and doing different things. And you got the guys that are just on the operation all the time. And you got the guys like you and I that are off and learning and exploring and asking questions. And I don't think there's one right approach, but I'm definitely the off-ranch guy. And if you're going to be that guy, having a support network at home with your staff is just so critical. And we both have that. And it just allows us to get away to WRM, get away to the halter event in Montana and just experience other things and have those private conversations with people and figure out what they're doing and how to get better and how to improve.
And that's where our big ideas for our own operations come from.
Yes.
Who knows what we'll do, but what I've seen with what people are doing with this halter app, we have a call every week or two with people that are doing it. And there's guys that are doing things with like calving, and they've got like a middle pasture where they're feeding, but all the cows have to go back to their respective sides, whether they have a steer on this side and all the heifer calves are on this side. And like that would never have crossed my mind to sort and sex like that, or how you can sort using that app. And these guys have figured it out, but it's going to being on meetings all the time. But I did see something that really kind of shook me the other day. And if you want to be successful, sometimes or for a while, you may be a visitor in your own home.
Tell me more.
So basically, I'm gone all the time to meetings, just like this Homer Buell you were just talking about.
Yeah.
You're gone a fair amount to things. And when I come home, I mean, everybody welcomes me in with open arms. It's not like they see me once a month, but I would say there are times that I spend half the days a month in a hotel room or just totally gone. So You become a visitor in your own home. And is that what you want? Are you comfortable doing that? I guess is the question you always have to ask yourself. But success does not come with the easy route of being at home every night often.
And I'll tell you the nice thing, Terry, who was our lead director, Heine, he said, home is the best place I've ever been. And he traveled as much as you and I, as much as anyone in that lead role. And that really struck a bell. And you only realize that when you're gone and you come back. So I love being home. This is someone who's going to spend 5 months in Africa, but I love wine glass. I love being home, and it's just being gone puts you in a different perspective and just allows you to love being home more, if that makes any sense at all.
I get it completely. I will tell you, the ranch having bought an airplane and me getting my pilot's license, I'm able to spend, I've noticed, more days at home. Like I went to a meeting, I think it was 2 weeks ago in Cody, Wyoming, and it's a 2-hour flight in our ranch plane to Cody. We had a meeting for 1.5 hours in Cody, and then we flew 2 hours home, and we left at, I don't know, 9:30 in the morning or something. I came up to the ranch, had breakfast with the crew, did all the things, went to the airport, got in the plane, flew up there, did the meeting, and I was home by like, I don't know, 4 or 5 that afternoon. Like I was able to do what would have taken 2 full days to drive up there, have the meeting, drive home, get home late at night, miss at least 1, maybe 2 nights in my bed. And I was able to go up and do it. And it was just like I was running around on the ranch on the 4-wheeler all day. And I showed up that night at home like I'd been around all day.
Yeah. As many miles as you put on a pickup, the airplane for you is necessity.
Yeah, it's been really great. So anybody out there that's traveling a lot and you can get an airplane and you can get a pilot's license, it will change your whole world.
Especially you Western ranchers that are traveling all over Timbuktu.
It's interesting. They say that 1% of people are pilots. And in our valley, I think that number is probably, it would be closer to 5%.
Yeah.
And if you go to ranchers, it's probably closer to 30%.
I would agree. It's definitely a thing.
So it's interesting. Yeah, you get out west and the acreages and the distances to travel to things are so far that it's a lot more people with airplanes out here.
Yeah.
So, all right. What else? Do you have anything more with Scott that you guys visited about that you can share?
No, not really. Long conversation. Talked about tax strategies. Talked about, inheritances, gifting, and just had a great conversation. And like I said, it's been one of the benefits of the podcast is people just reaching out. And the real conversations are always private. It just reminded me.
Yeah, we had a guy email both Logan and I yesterday. I don't know if you've seen this email yet, Logan. And he said, well, I really appreciate all the things you guys are talking about. A lot of it hits home, kind of a message. He said, and I learned that I'll be lucky to get a 2-word response from Eamon. Because I'm not a great emailer. I send emails like text messages, which I did send more than 2 words as the response. But yeah, I'm not great about getting back with a long, lengthy email because I do most of it from my cell phone. So I'm not sitting here behind the keyboard responding. I'm more texting it. So.
Yeah, I saw an article in the Atlantic and it said, it's time to leave email behind.
I've been saying that since the beginning.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But yeah, I mean, it's changed a lot of things. And I remember as a kid, remember the fax machine going off all the time?
Yeah.
And now it's like fax. I don't think my kids know what a fax machine was.
When I first moved back, we have the branch office, obviously, and then my dad has his own office in town, and we would fax documents back and forth. So I have faxed in this decade. We don't have it anymore, but
it was the beginning of the decade.
Beginning of the decade. Yeah. I mean, actually, it was probably last decade, but.
Yeah, it was in the phone books too. You had like your house phone, like whatever that was. And then you had, maybe it was 1 digit up or down from your house phone number. And that was your fax number. And that would be in the phone book. That's great. We just have a little, like for our community here of whatever it is, 1,000 people at most, we have a very small little, probably maybe 10-page phone book. And it has people's registered brands in the back.
Really?
So it's almost like if you got somebody's cow in the corral and you're like, I don't know what brand that is, you could go look in the phone book.
Really?
And say, yeah, that's Ned's.
That's cool.
Yeah. So phone book has all the information you could possibly need. And it's got everybody's phone number, used to have the fax number, and it's got the brand inspections.
This is one of the funny things about Nebraska is we brand, obviously, but it's always by the tag. Everyone has kind of a unique tagging system. And whenever you need to identify an animal, you typically describe the tag. When you're on the phone with your neighbor, you're like, it's a blue Y-Tax with 123 on it. And it's like, oh yeah, that's Larry's. Because I know he uses those blue Y-Tax tags every year.
We do a white ear tag, and the old cows, we bought some cows, and I don't know why, but the white ear tag is in the right ear and not the left ear. And then we do a red tag in the opposite ear. And then we've bought different cattle or something over the years that was like, we kind of wanted to keep an eye on them. So we did 2 reds or 2 whites. But generally we try, and every cow has a white ear tag in her left ear and a red ear tag in her right ear. And the red ear tag has a ladder on it.
Yep. Yeah. We have a similar deal where we use color by age, but we've got the ranch tag and then a number tag.
We try and do our first number on that tag being the year she was born.
Yep. That's one of the ways to do it. I inherited the color coding system. We've got 8 different colors, and that's kind of what we use. But it's funny. It's always you identify the cattle by the tag.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I could remember the years and the colors well enough to go with that system.
You do have to look it up.
I'd have to have like a little thing printed on my pickup, and that's got the numbers and the age and the colors. But well, I still want to hear more about, I've been thinking about it actually this week, but Logan and I haven't gotten to visit a whole lot. So talk to us about your weakness, genetics, and African cattle.
Yeah, so I kind of hit on how it is my weakness and not my focus at all with genetics. And one of the projects that I'm going to really explore while we're in Africa is looking at the African breeds and deciding, which one to add to our herd to really increase the heat adaptation as part of it. And Southern Africa is a hot spot for exceptional genetics and grazing. So you have Stan Parsons and Alan Savory came from Southern Africa, as did Johan Zietzman and Jan Bosma, and he made the Bosmara breed. And so I'm going to visit Campbell's place, and he has some Bosmara breeds that he's going to show me as well. And I'm going to look at a lot of different species down there. Mashona is one that I'm going to look at. It's a Sanga from Zimbabwe, and Sanga just means that it's Bos indicus and Bos taurus mixed. So it does have a little bit of indicus, but in none of the visual markings. Ogensberger is one of them that Cooper Hibbard has used. That's one of the mountain ranges in South Africa. I'm going to be looking at that breed in particular because Cooper kind of selected it for his. And yeah, I'm really excited to just really dig into it. Bosma, he developed the Bosmara, which was 5/8 Afrikaner, 3/16 Hereford, and 3/16 Shorthorn was kind of the breed that he selected. And his philosophy was just very functionally efficient animals that fit the environment, very strong emphasis on visual fertility and phenotype. And I am 100% that way. And Johan Zietzman really took that further. And when I read Man, Cattle and Veld several years ago, and I'm going to reread it on the trip, is 100% phenotype. EPDs are, and I'm going to offend some people, but EPDs are for losers. When I look at my bulls, when we select the home raised bulls, I go 100% on phenotype. We do DNA test every one of them. And if the numbers are trash, but I look at that thing and phenotypically he is correct and efficient, I will select exclusively for phenotype. And I really think that the EPDs have been a negative technology for the average cattle rancher because they are chasing these trends that are moving their cows and their cow herd in the wrong direction.
So a couple things. The first one is every time I hear somebody's doing a bunch of genetic mixing and matching and trying to make this, I'll just say perfect cow. And Lee Leachman was the one who said, he's like, we're nowhere close to making the perfect cow. And here is one that has 9 different breeds in it. And we were there at his place near Fort Collins. And he said, we should be double that. And we're working on it. But there are guys out there that are really playing with genetics and trying to add in more and more and more to try and make technically this perfect cow. But Shorthorn is always in the conversation every time.
Because it's an unimproved breed.
I love it. I've never played with any Shorthorn, but I love that every time somebody's talking about improving to their genetic composition, they're talking about Shorthorns.
There's no registered bull provider that's going to advertise on this podcast after this episode.
Shoot. So the other is EPDs. I used to be an EPD trashy guy. I looked at them all, and when we were AI in like 700, but we did get our cow herd to where we wanted to be. But we were very female directed like you. That was what we were working on. We were AI and we were making bulls, but the top of mind was how do we make a better cow?
Yes.
And I think EPDs got us to a point where we have more prime than we do choice in this country. And
Yeah.
that's because of EPDs, because the entire country pushed hard because in the 70s we lost so many consumers that we had to fix that. And I would argue EPDs did get us to where we are today because we had to make a better, more consistent product for the consumer.
I do think EPDs are great for the feed yard owner. I don't think that they are a useful tool whatsoever for the average cow herd owner.
Yep, I think you're dead on, and we all have to have this symbiotic relationship. But we've done more to help the feed yard guy and the packer than we have ourselves, and we've
Yeah,
made
so
a lot of really inefficient cows.
yeah, John O'Day he's very popular on Facebook. He had a very viral post a few months ago, and I'm kind of echoing that same idea about how the EPDs have been a detriment to the cow man and has shipped a lot of compensatory gain off to the feed yard to their benefit. And when I'm in Africa, I'm going to look at some of these unimproved breeds. So even like Burke Teichert, he talks a lot about Coriani crosses. So he crosses all of his cows with Coriani because they are unimproved. No one has tried to improve it / wreck it.
Well, they're good for turning left and stretching.
Yeah, they are. Good for coloration too.
Yeah, but there's a lot of opportunities in putting these kind of weird unimproved breeds on your herd. And like I said, I'll stand on my soapbox of we have done more to help the feed yard guy and the packer than we have the cow man. As the cow man, we have done more to help everybody else than ourselves, and we've made inefficient cows.
Yeah.
That's why I like to winter my calves on the desert. And if they can't get bred, I don't give them any treats. And I look for a 70% breed up. I hope they don't get bred very well. And then I know I've gotten rid of the ones that are going to be problems later in my herd after I've invested more time and money, bulls, trucking into these cows. I want them gone on the front end, not later on down the road.
Same. Exactly the same. I expose a lot of heifers and hope you get a 65% breed up.
Yep. And Burke taught us that.
Yeah.
I do want to throw out a John O'Day. He put up a thing, being an Irishman, he put up a thing that the IRA are wanting to go and get rid of all the immigrants in Ireland. He said, looks like the boys in the old country are getting the band back together.
You shared that with me. I saw it this morning.
Oh my God. I was laughing so hard. I shared it at breakfast with my crew. I thought it was so good. I was the only one that really was laughing because my brother-in-law grew up in the IRA days.
Really?
Yeah, my sister Bridget, who's not on the ranch, her husband's from Northern Ireland, and my mom said he did not have a happy childhood. So, anyways, I've got to see some Barzonas, and you had mentioned Campbell, and what breed did he have?
Bosmara.
Bosmara.
The cross.
And we mentioned Campbell a little bit before. I was here in the United States and worked for me for a summer, and he basically just ran a lot of poly for me and moving Logan's yearlings around. And so we got to meet Logan through that. But he did a great job and he really knew what he was doing. He grew up on a pretty good sized operation in South Africa. So I was like, Logan's going to get to stop and see him in his African adventures.
Yeah, we're excited. He's going to be one of the first stops.
That'll be great. And he's kind of on that East Coast, right?
No, it's pretty central South Africa.
Okay. Not far from Johannesburg. Is that right?
Yeah. So we're going to go from Durban, camp one spot, go to his place, kind of on the way to Cape Town.
Very cool. When I was in Cape Town, we were going to rappel down Table Rock Mountain, and it was raining and you couldn't even see Table Rock Mountain the day that we were set to do that. So we missed out on that. But if you can rappel down it, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Oh, well, we didn't get into the markets as much, and we can talk a little bit more about that next week. And I know you aren't going to put together a travel sheet per se, but I'd love to kind of get a basic outline of, you're going to Durban, Cape Town.
I have the entire thing in Excel by day. You know me, Damon. Come on.
It'd be great at some point for you to share that. Just if people are listening and they're into geography like I am, then they can kind of go look at a map and be like, man, that's going to be a heck of a trip.
Yeah, I've got a map. Actually, I'll share it with you. And it'll change, obviously, but I've got it. I have it every day in Excel. And we've talked to some people who've done the trip before and based it on their travels and the spreadsheets that they made, because that's how Logan Primino plans and thinks, is exclusively in Excel. So yeah, I've got it all mapped out.
That's really cool. When we traveled during COVID, my family and I took a trip down to meet a friend of mine in Southern California. And not one night did we have it planned where we would stop. We woke up every day and we were like, we'll figure it out. Yeah, and that's how I get around, and I do not have an Excel mind, but I've gotten better at being a numbers guy.
Yep, I understand. So Weston Savotas, who is a listener, I'm on a couple boards with him. He had 3 really great questions I think that we can get into next time. The first one is, how do you approach and evaluate opportunities to grow your operation during the high phase of the cattle cycle, which is high on people's minds because those are typically when some of those growth opportunities come, and we can hit on that. I've got some strong opinions on that and what you should do. Number 2 was, what types of risk management are you using specifically for bred heifers in your heifer development enterprise? I think that'd be a good one. You and I are both overexposed on bred heifers, and we can talk about what we've done. And then,
Overexposed and overstocked, as it were,
yeah, both.
in 2 of the driest years in the history of this country.
Number 3 was, how do you think about working capital within your operation? I think that's a great one. And then, how do you look at allocation of overheads, which I love to allocate overheads. I'm way into that stuff. So I think that those 4 questions I think would make for a great base for the podcast.
Yeah, and the other thing that you and I are talking about, and we didn't get to today, but what does marketing look like for your operation going into this where most of the country is in drought? How are you going to market your animals, and where do you want to sell them?
Yeah, we've got a lot to talk about.
Right. So look forward to visiting and seeing everybody next week.
Yeah. Keep running on grass.
Adios.